Okay, so now I've made my first little animation here, and I want to talk about how we get it out of here. So the first thing I'm going to do is File, Export, and you'll see that we have a couple of options. And we can export this out to a movie. This is a little bit more like a movie preview, but we can export from the display node, and that's basically going to export what I'm seeing here in the viewport. I'll call this ball test and hit OK. I gotta specify a directory path. Let's do that one more time. Movie. Perhaps. Okay, yeah, I don't want it there. I want to go ahead and put it in my test scenes. And let's just go ahead and put this, we'll make it a new folder here. We'll call this, we'll just put it here. Control C. There we go. Save. Okay. Okay, we'll do that. Apparently installed the codec for me. Let's see if it exported the movie. And so I get this. And so you'll notice a couple of things are different. One is the background is black, which isn't the case here. And the reason the background is black is because what we're actually seeing here is not the finished render of this animation. So yes, 2D animation has to render as well. Right now what we're seeing, if we click this little flower, this is the OpenGL view. This is like basically the work view. It's like Maya's viewport. If you want to see the render, we can click here, and you'll see that the render view has nothing in the background, and so it's going to render nothing as black or transparent. I think that we can render this as an image sequence and see the transparency of it. If we wanted a color in our background, we can add a new layer here, and I usually use color card, and that will put that below, and then I can then double click on the color card and choose the color I want the background to be. I like that. Let's do that. And so now if I were to, so it's going to play back much more slowly if I have this render view on. If I go back to here and do another export of my movie, and we call this one ball test 2. Okay. Renders it out. And you'll notice that time it rendered a little bit more slowly. And so now we get this animation. I will show you that this is still giving me a video, and sometimes I want an image sequence, and I'll just show you something that's going to be a little confusing at first. This is something we will maybe touch on a little bit later in the future, but that is the node view. So the node view is what is really going on in this scene, and this is where Toon Boom gets very powerful. So if I select everything here and I click this button, it's going to organize this a little bit better for us. So hit OK, and we can see what's actually happening here. We have, think of this as a flow chart that goes downward, right? And we're working toward these two nodes here: our display node, which is what we see here, and our write node, which is how we would export this. Right? This composite node mixes all of the other nodes above it together. And so right now it's taking the ball drawing layer here and the color card layer. It's mixing them together into one image, and it's sending them to the display node or to the write node. Now if I disconnected this from the display node, we wouldn't be able to see anything. And if I drag this back and plug it in, we will. So this has a lot of capabilities for both visibility and rigging techniques that we can use. And so that's where we will get more elaborate in that. Probably not in your first class. We will talk just a little bit about this, but this can get really complex and allow you to do a lot of really neat things. The reason I show you this is because of the write node, because this is the only way we can easily select the write node and see what is in it. And it's not going to be under Tools Properties. Instead, we have to open up one more menu. If I open this and go to Layer Properties, you'll see that every layer we have, the ball, the color card, they all have a different set of properties. And if I choose my right layer, this is where I can change some of the information about how this exports. So I can export out an image sequence. I can export out a movie. Let's do a PNG sequence. And what I'm going to do is temporarily delete this color card. Okay. So if I do a PNG sequence, colors plus alpha, then what this is, and I'll call this ball underscore. So if I set it up like this and I go to File, Export, Render Right Nodes, all of them, and hit OK. In my Frames folder, which is where I told it to put it, you'll see that I get a JPEG or a PNG image of every frame. And what is interesting about this is the ball is visible, but nothing else is. So if I were to import this into something like Premiere, I could have this bouncing ball over top of another video. Right? I have a transparency layer around it, and every image could be then composited onto another video. Right? So this would allow you to do a couple of different things. It allows you to, even after you've been in Toon Boom, to still do some like color correction on the ball or detailed work later. It doesn't mean you have to do it that way. We could just set this to not have any at all, and we'll call this, alt ball underscore, file, export, render right nodes, OK. And you'll see that alt ball, you can't really tell, but it did render a background. It just rendered the background as black. And so that's how I could put a color in there and just have my background just render straight out of Toon Boom. And then we can take that into Premiere and just turn that into a video. There's nothing really wrong with file export movie, except for it's not going to really render the frames quite as fully. So the other thing you could do is you could just click here on this, and when you render out your image frames, export render right node, it's going to render those out, and then it's also going to combine them into a single movie file in here somewhere. I'm not seeing it. So I may have put it somewhere else. I may have to do, there we go. We do that. File, export, render right nodes. Okay. And it combines it into an MOV for us. So these are all the different ways that you can get this out. And then I'm just going to go to File, Save. This should get you a good start on everything that you need to do in Toon Boom. There is some more complicated rigging tools and some more advanced stuff that we can do, and we will be looking at that a little bit more next week.